Welcome to More Than Legal, the show where we go behind the scenes to uncover the fine print of power, purpose, and profit. I'm your host, attorney Danielle Laughlin. After almost 2 decades in the trenches of courtrooms and boardrooms, I have learned that every move leaves a mark and every deal tells a story. What will we uncover today? Let's find out. Hey, real quick, before we dive into the episode, remember, nothing you hear on this podcast is intended to be legal, financial, or tax advice. I invite you to contact any of the guests you hear by looking in the show notes for their contact information, or if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my contact information at daniellelaughlin.com. All right, now let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to More Than Legal. I'm Danielle Laughlin, and I am so pumped to be back for season 2. We made it through a whole season, and I'm just amazed because we talked about doing this podcast for so long before we actually did it. And that's a lot of what I want to talk to you guys about today in the first episode of this season. A lot of talk and a lot of action because we have just kicked off a new year, 2026, and things are already heating up, and it's only mid-February. So let's do a little recap since the last time we talked, because a lot has transpired globally. And all of those things are really important to business, as we all know. So first, let's go back to December of 2025. I was so thrilled to have a conversation with Michelle Bernier, who is a lawyer from Venezuela. She experienced exile from Venezuela. Her mother was kidnapped, as you probably learned through the episodes with her. And we talked extensively about the Venezuelan situation and how the economy and the country has gone to just a really poor representation of what it once was. Miraculously, within just a few weeks of us talking, the U.S. government, the Trump administration, went into Venezuela and captured President Maduro, presumably carving a path for more economic and personal liberties in Venezuela. That is our hope and our belief based on what we know about the mission and the purpose of the mission. Of course, as with everything, the proof will be in the pudding as to what that actually means for the people of Venezuela. But all signs point to it is at least a step in the right direction, even if it's a little ethically and legally challenged, which of course, you know, I have a lot of opinions about those things. I don't want to digress into Venezuela on this episode. I just want to re-anchor us to those conversations with Michelle and then what transpired after that. Another thing that happened, as you may know, is that Honduras, another Latin American country in Central America, went from a communist government to a more liberal or conservative, classical liberal, I guess I'll say for those who know what that means, to really, again, show that people in the Americas are trying to turn from anti-market, state-based thinking, socialistic and communistic thinking, market control, to a more free market society and dynamic. And again, with the hopes of improving the economic and personal liberties for the Venezuelan people. For the Honduran people. So we had these two major shifts in several of the past weeks from a political standpoint, which obviously bears on the markets and business. And then just last week, I was actually in Honduras. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But what happened while I was in Honduras over on the other side of the world, in Asia, in Japan specifically, is that the Japanese people overwhelmingly voted for a new prime minister, their first female prime minister and a pro-market prime minister. And her focus is on the economy of Japan and the markets. So we are seeing a significant shift in voter demographics showing up to support pro market politicians. And that, for me personally, is so exciting and really encouraging because we have seen so much negative media in the US around capitalism and markets. And yes, there is a flaw in every system, and we have flaws in our system. Of course, we do. And hopefully, you're trying to prevent some of the negative consequences because you're doing business in a principled way, which is what we're often talking about on the show here. So, why am I bringing all of this up? This is not a political commentary podcast. Well, of course, it's not a political commentary podcast, but there's only certain political ideologies that actually allow people the freedom to own property, which a business is property, right? It's property rights that underpins business. And so it is important that we bring these ideas to the forefront as we start this year. It's important to know that you're still the good guy. As much as many people are trying to paint business owners and those who are out there trying to make a living for their family by being capitalists and trying to create more value in the world, you're not evil. You're not. You're a good person and you're doing a great thing for this world. Even if there are some people that don't see it, the majority of the world knows the truth. And I think that that's why I wanted to focus on this topic today, because we need to kick off 2026 with some positivity. 2025 was rough, and we still have some remnants of the 2025 roughness still lingering. Of course, here in the US, we see consistent political debauchery, is what I just want to call it. It is an absolute kangaroo court of personalities on every issue and every side, just wanting to angle for more airtime, wanting to angle for their particular issue du jour. And we just know, we all know the truth. Markets matter. What people actually do with their hard earned cash matters. A lot of this political stuff that's going on, we know it's going to fly by night in the next, newspaper or podcast world, where we'll hear about it today and then tomorrow everybody will be moving on to a new topic. But as you plan your business this year and as you implement all of the great strategies and tactics that you've agreed to, which I know you've done this by now, thankfully, you are ready. You're ready. You're in mid-February, and now is the time to really get things going. So we wanted to come to you at the right time after you have already spent January figuring out what it is that you're going to do, all of the great plans, putting them in place, putting them on the calendar, making sure you know who's going to be doing those things, when they're going to do them. And now you can just execute. So we're here to start season 2 in execution. The markets are moving, people are voting, your business is well underway, and now it's time to get down to business. So, how does that show up for us here on the show? What that means for us here on the show is that we are going to focus this season on execution. Our personal theme at the law firm this year is build and serve. We have 3 stakeholder groups that we're constantly looking at, and I'm sure that yours are similar, maybe even the same. We're looking at our clients, obviously, as our paramount stakeholder group. Without good clients, we can't have a team, right? And then the team, of course, is our second stakeholder group. They make the things do what they're supposed to do, and they deliver the great services to the great clients. And then our third pillar are our partners. These are our vendors. These are our referral partners. These are community leaders, politicians, just all kinds of really great business leaders and people showing up in the community that support us and that we support. And so with those 3 stakeholder pillars, this year, we are building systems to better serve each of those groups and to be intentional about that. And so we're executing on that plan. And I thought, well, why not share what we're doing, bring on some guests that are doing similar things in their businesses and their communities, showing a little bit of what does execution look like when you're actually focused on doing business in a principled way? Because you got to do the right things if you want to have the right results. And we believe that the only way to make good money is to do good things. And so we have to start first with, how do we execute to do the right things? And that brings me to my trip last week in a place called Prospera, also known as Zetas, in Roatan, Honduras. I saw execution at a level that I've never seen it before while I was in Prospera. A little bit of a brief history on Prospera so that you can know kind of the backdrop of where all of this execution comes from. Okay, so back in about 2017, there was, I believe it was a referendum of sorts, but essentially, really smart lawyers and really brilliant Hondurans who wanted to see more economic uh, benefit in the country fought and negotiated with the government to have these economic zones that were outside of the regular commercial laws of the country. So these zones still have criminal and family domestic type laws that are country based, but their economic and commercial regulatory scheme does not apply. Okay. And so these zones are able to operate in a very free way, a very open market way within Honduras. And there are several of them, but Prospera is is the largest and the most successful, to my knowledge. So why was this a thing? Well, in Honduras, there was and still is a lot of skepticism about the government because the government has been very fickle and fragile. It has, as you probably know, been taken over by drug, cartels. The political and voting system doesn't have the most legitimacy. People really question whether the votes are real. People do not uh, believe that the government is there to protect them because of all the corruption. It's very difficult to start a business there. You have to essentially bribe several levels of bureaucrats to get a business. It takes so long, 18 months or longer, to even get it done. And so it's just not a great place for people to have economic freedom. And the reason that I think the Honduran government at that time agreed to it is because it was a more free market focused government. But right after this agreement, and there's a lot of legal issues there. There's some international treaties and things that were involved. I'm not going to go into the details of those things because honestly, I don't know all those details specifically enough to speak on that. But I do know that after this was approved, then a new government came into power for the last 4 years before this most recent election, and that government was very anti-market. It was a very the president, my understanding is that she's pretty communist. She was very much in support of Maduro in Venezuela and kind of had pledged her allegiance to Maduro and saw him as a beacon of what type of country she wanted Honduras to be, which, if you know anything about how Venezuela has ended up after Castro and Maduro, you know that that is not what it was back in the 80s. And it's 80s and into the 90s. And it definitely was not a place for freedom. And the last 4 years was a lot of pressure on Prospera, the Zetas and Prospera, because the government was trying to take the property back from them. And there was a lot of political and criminal allegations going on. And essentially, it ended up in an arbitration between the Prospera Zetas and the Honduran government. And the Prospera Zetas was successful in that arbitration and obtained a 11 point something billion dollar settlement. is my understanding. Now, again, I haven't looked at these details, and I may have some of these details also, so don't hold me to all of those specifics, but that's the general landscape of this place and what it is and what its history has been. So I went with a group of people and with the principal business group, and we were there to see what this was all about and to learn more. And I was blown away with the level of execution that I see going on there in just a very short period of time. This is essentially a city state kind of idea. I mean, it is a city run as a business, it is a city run completely independently of the other civic services that you might expect to receive from a government. And there are several real estate developments that are going up there, and they're being developed by folks from Scandinavia. There's a lot of biotech stuff and biohealth stuff with medical experts and doctors from all over the world. There's a lot of financial innovation as well. Bitcoin is accepted all across this place. Anywhere you go, you can pay with your Bitcoin, and I think other cryptos as well. There, you can pay your taxes with Bitcoin. I mean, it is like a new place. It is a new, think of a Dubai or Hong Kong in the early stages of those cities, right? They are similarly set up to where they have this special permission from the government for a certain period of time to do certain types of things. And that's exactly what Prospera is. The level of execution to me was just phenomenal because there aren't a lot of resources. And so one of the things that we talk about, if you listen back last season about the legal process, this is what I call it, which is an acronym. But in the legal process, when we're talking about making high stakes decisions, one of the things that we have to actually look at are those resources. Do we have the actual ability to do something? And so in a place like Prospera, the resources are pretty finite. And in order for anything to happen, they have to literally pull resources from external sources, capitalists who are contributing capital, even not-for-profits as well, like people that are interested in trying to improve humanity in some way, by pursuing what other parts of the world and other jurisdictions deem outside acceptable standards. For example, there is a lot of focus on biohealth and longevity research and things of that nature, and using certain stem cell techniques that take a lot of money and a lot of time to pursue through the US process with the FDA. So this is a place where the same ethical standards apply, but the regulatory scheme can be chosen. You could choose to apply Germanic code or French law or Japanese law, right? You could choose Honduran law to govern your entity there. And so you see that people are choosing regulatory schemes that are most supportive to the type of work that they're doing. They have the freedom to choose which laws apply to their business. It is incredible. And because they have the freedom to do that, and they have flat, transparent taxation, it is a place where people feel free to try things, experiment, risk, put investments down that maybe they wouldn't otherwise choose to put down, because they can now be part of something that is, not as expensive to pursue. You could maybe go there and test ethically at the same standards for fractions on the dollar as what it would cost to test inside the US. And then you can bring it to the FDA for approval after that. So there's just a lot going on in the healthcare space, and they're just really exciting. Real estate, they are developing these beautiful cabins that are built by sustainable local wood, that are aesthetically built to really like blend into the natural environment so that it isn't this like site pollution of just, high-rise buildings and, all the nasty things that we see. I don't want to say nasty, but when you're in a serene environment like a remote island, in Central America, you don't necessarily want to see a bunch of concrete, right? And so they are really building these sustainable residential places. So the real estate there is just really exciting, sustainable, and low footprint, right? Like just really not trying to disturb the land very much, not trying to change the land, but rather trying to work with the land, which I think is really beautiful. They have a school there to teach children in a local village that are very poor, to teach them English, to give them access to computers so they can learn how to use computers. And there's also just another side of it with this Bitcoin community. There's a Bitcoin center there, and you can buy everything in Bitcoin. You can trade Bitcoin. They have all kinds of stuff that you can do there. You can learn. It's a learning center as well. And I was just blown away. Like, how do so many people from so many different places around the globe get so much done in an environment of absolute uncertainty? The government was trying to come into this place and take it and take the businesses away from the owners and take the money and take the buildings and everything that they have already developed. How? How is it possible? And you want to know why? You want to know why they are so successful at doing this? Because they are principled. They are doing it not for the money, not for the fame. They are doing it for the purpose behind it, which is to prove that a free and truly consenting populace can change the world. Every person in this place consents to the rules because they're part of choosing what the rules are that are going to apply to them. It's a wonderful thing. They get to say, I don't want that set of rules. I'd rather have this set of rules. And then they follow those rules. They don't bemoan paying taxes because the taxes are transparent and upfront and they're a flat percentage. Unlike most parts of the world where they're convoluted, there's take the US tax code, for example. I mean, oh my gosh, the amount of like tax professionals and lawyers and consultants and financial advisors that you need in America to simply manage your money is ridiculous. It is absolute insanity. You go there, what is it? 5% income tax flat, 1% corporate income tax flat, 1.5, I believe, on land. Like, think of it. If you knew what your taxes were going to be to the penny, would you really care about paying them? No, not really. And if you could go on there and pay your taxes in a matter of minutes because it's so easy to calculate your taxes and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to get that figured out, would you care? Not so much. And even better, what if you could use your crypto to actually pay the taxes, right? So this is a just absolutely phenomenal place. I think it is a great example of what it means to be a good steward, not just of money, but of all resources that you have at your disposal. Your time, your energy, and yes, of course, your money. But where do you want it to go? And what do you want it to do? And the folks in Prospera know the answer to those two things. Where do they want it to go and what do they want it to do? So all of the uncertainty out there that is always present, that will never go away for any of us, which is political uncertainty. Of course, some places are more unstable than others. I couldn't deny that. But every place has a level of instability. And we live in an unpredictable world because even if you do all the right things, like we're always trying to tell folks, set the goals, set the plans like you've done this year. If you don't know where you are going and why you are going there, it's unlikely that you're going to execute and actually get there. Because where and why is what matters. Those two things matter more than how much money you're going to have, what new gadgets you're going to buy. It really is about setting an intention, principled intention for yourself, for your business, and just sticking it out even when the going gets rough. So I'm going to close this episode with focus less on the dollar. Not that it's not important, it's absolutely critical. But you're going to have more dollars in your pocket if you focus on where and why than if you focus on that dollar. Because math is math. Projections are math with a whole lot of assumptions applied to them. And you may or may not hit those assumptions. You may or may not execute that plan as originally designed. And there's many reasons that it may change. But if the target of where you're going and the reason, the purpose of why you're doing it do not change, it won't matter when the money comes and how the money comes, because you'll always be on the right path. Another lesson from the Prospera journey for me was resources will always come where those two things are clear. When you are clear, resources will always come. I've experienced this personally in my life many times over, from being a single mom with no money, literally mountains of student loan debt, credit card debt, and literally $5,000 in savings and a $5,000 loan, a micro loan. I started my law firm. And I didn't have any resources. I didn't have any savior that was going to swoop in. I wasn't married. My ex wasn't even supporting us financially. My parents and my family lived away, several hours away from me. I was truly a lone ranger, a lone wolf in that period of life. And yet the resources always came because I knew where I was going, law firm owner, and I knew why I was doing it, to build a legacy of freedom for my family. Entrepreneurship can change lives, but only if there is a clarity that only you can find, because it's your story, it's your vision. Prospera is charting its path in an uncertain political climate. We're seeing groups of voters and political bodies just making a huge, statement that they want freedom of economic mobility. That's what all of this is about. And so in order to steward resources that you already have the privilege of being a business owner. You already have the privilege of being able to hire people and grow a business and do a lot in this world. You've probably already done amazing, incredible things. More likely than not, you're sitting in the top 5% of wealth of the entire globe. Maybe 10, but still like better than the vast majority of humanity. Thinking this year very clearly about where you're going and why you're going there is critical to execution. So we're going to buckle up, all my little buttercups out there. We're going to really focus on what does it mean to live a principled business journey, to be a leader who is not just making money, but is also doing good in the world, and to lead with ethics, because that is what is going to build your legacy. The dollars will always show up and the resources will always abound for those who are clear. And I hope that you can be clear with me this year. As we close out on the note of clarity, let me give you the core values of Sage Business Council. We are clear. Clear is kind. Candor. We have candor because we want transparency and we want people to make informed decisions. Leadership. We believe that you lead by serving others. Accountability. Account for oneself. Stop being focused on everyone else and do the thing that you promised to do. Ethics. Ethics matter. And you have to be aligned with your ethics in order to have success. Because effort without ethics is chaos. It does not yield expected returns. At best, it's a roulette table. And finally, responsibility. It's a responsibility to be an entrepreneur as much as it is a privilege. So take the responsibility seriously. Get clear about where you're going and why you're going there. And I promise you, the plan that you've made will actually come to fruition. And I'm going to keep you posted about my visit to Honduras next year and also sooner, because I have a feeling that I'll be doing some principal business there real soon. And you might want to think about doing that too. So more to come on Prospera, the future of governance as a service, which is what they are providing, and how we as entrepreneurs and business leaders here in the United States can think outside the box about the future of globalized workforce, the ethics of our AI use, and whether we may just really want to find more useful ways to build up humanity rather than just building more and more machines to make more and more money and never really seeing the benefit to humanity. So these are exciting topics. We're going to go deeper this year. I am so excited to share this stuff with you. And as always, give us your feedback. What do you think? What do you want to hear about? I'd love to know, because I am so excited for what this year has in store all across the world. I think we're on to something big, and I think big things are changing and shifting in a positive direction, and I look forward to being a part of it with you. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.